Hail, full of grace. I'm sure lots of people over the years have written, doctoral dissertations on what those words mean and what it especially meant to Mary. And certainly just taking it at a bit of a surface level, full of grace, makes a ton of sense that we would think that Mary was full of grace. If for the starting reasoning might just be why we're gathered here today. She was conceived immaculately without original sin. And then we know that she lived this wonderful, wonderful life so connected with God. And so it makes lots of sense that she could be described as full of grace. I just started thinking about us, you and I. Are you and I full of grace? Now, you might very quickly dismiss that and say, oh, no, that's not possible. Because if Mary was full of grace, I'm nowhere near Mary's. I'm not playing in her league, and so I'm probably not full of grace. But before you dismiss that, let me see if I can help you out, maybe talk you into this a little bit. I need to start with this story, though. Just picture, I don't know if you are one of those people that makes coffee and puts it in a bit of a cup or something, travel mug, and takes it in the car with you. But picture, supposing you've done this, you've made some coffee, you put it in a travel mug, but you didn't quite get the lid on well properly. And you put it in the car and you're driving along and you hit a bumpy section of road. And as the car rattles along, suddenly the top falls off and some of the coffee spills out. So here's the question for you. It'll sound like a silly question. Why did coffee spill out of your travel mug? The most obvious answer, of course, would be either, well, I hit the rough part of the road, or I didn't put the lid on properly. That's why it spilled. But there is a more fundamental answer than that one. And that is that coffee came out of your travel mug because coffee was in the travel mug. Oh, good, you're awake. Yeah, I know it sounds silly, but it's true. If you were of the habit of taking water in your travel mug, well, water would come out. Well, the point of this story is simply to remind us that it's the same thing with us. You and I go through life and we get bumped. Things happen to us. And what comes out of us is what's in us. You undoubtedly have met, I hope you're not one of them, you have undoubtedly met people that they're just angry people. You bump them and they just get angry. Maybe you've seen it at a grocery store. Something small, minor thing happens with the checkout counter and they go into a bit of a rage because they got bumped and what's in them is anger. And so that's what comes out. I got a particularly wonderful illustration of this some years ago when I was working at my pastoral ministry. One year in seminary, I spent a day at a nursing home in this little place near where the seminary was up in Boston. And there were two ladies, both in the memory care unit. And the one woman, no one wanted to be around her. She was just angry and mad. She yelled at you no matter what was going on. That's what she just did. And she would forever just be hollering out. On the other hand, there was a nun there, and one of my jobs most weeks was to go get this sister and take her to the morning mass around 11 o'clock. And so when I do this, I go in and she'd be sitting there just by her bed, perfectly calm and very, very neatly dressed, and she'd just be looking out. And you would say to her, "Sister, it's time for Mass." Now, the sister rarely talked, so mostly she would just look at you and give you this wonderful smile and nod a little bit. And then she would get up, and then we would walk to Mass pretty slowly, and she would sit at Mass and just look. She didn't often stand or kneel or any of that stuff. She would just sit there and sort of radiate this calm. And it struck me that I just wondered if the woman who was so angry, she had spent her whole life, with a filter, and she could probably contain it sometimes, most of the time probably, but she was so angry inside that when Alzheimer's took away her ability to sort of filter, that what came out of her was what she had spent a lifetime putting into her, all that anger. But the nun, on the other hand, she'd spent a lifetime putting beautiful and wonderful things into her. Prayer, living in community, worship, the Eucharist, all those things. She spent a whole lifetime putting that into her. And so when she was no longer had that filter, what came out of her was the only thing that was in her, was just all this love and care and compassion. I just think that you and I, we have a choice any given day. What do you want to put into your life? What do you want to put in? And I would just think it's pretty simple. We can't choose to watch on our screens a whole lot of stuff that isn't going to put love and care and concern for others into ourselves. And I just think if we just watch too much of that kind of stuff, or we read those books, or we hang around people who that's all they do, they bicker and that kind of stuff, we fill ourselves up like that, well then, yeah, we're not going to be particularly full of grace. And there are going to be times when we're going to lash out at other people, and maybe, hopefully it won't happen to any of us, but we might get into one of those moments where we're no longer able to control ourselves. And people will know, well, there's what they spent a lifetime putting into themselves. But what if we were more like Sister? We don't have the advantage of living in a convent or something like that, but still, we can spend our days as best we can filling ourselves with good things. Certainly, a life of prayer is a wonderful start to that. Reading Scripture, another wonderful start to that. And being very careful about what we listen to. So the fact that maybe I'm not as up on what's going on in the world or in the country, maybe that's not as important as I think it is. And so maybe I just need to turn some of that stuff off so I don't listen to a lot of people yelling and screaming and complaining and whatever. Maybe I just want to fill myself up with the good things. Paul puts it wonderfully. He says, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is right, whatever is praiseworthy. Think of these things. I think that's how you fill yourself with grace. And I think it's doable. You and I could do this. I don't know that Gabriel is going to show up to any of us and say, full of grace, but we could still be that way. Certainly, it'd be a wonderful gift, not only to ourselves, but a wonderful gift to the people you and I know.